All right. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's your boy, Mahesh Chookolingo, and I have a wonderful guest on the show today. His name is Kim Sinton. Kim, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you, Mahesh.
And today we want to share with you a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast with Tulsi Gabbard. I do want to give a disclaimer. It has been brought to my attention by other people that I should let people know in advance that when I share or when we share anything, it's not that we're trying to tell you what to think or that we have the gospel. We're just sharing our point of view, and it's up to you to go and do your own research and look into things yourself. And you know, we don't want to offend anyone. It's just conversation because we're at a crucial point in our history where I think it's important that we as a country develop dialogue. And so with that, I would like to go right into the video, and then afterwards, Kim and I would do our commentary. Right, Kim? Is that okay?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Here it is.
You know, it's one of those things where as it's all playing out, there's this sense of hopelessness because there's not a clearly defined path where this country's ship gets righted. Mm-hmm. It's like I just see a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion and a lot of infighting, and I don't know how this plays out. It doesn't seem like there's a real clear, this is our path to sanity.
You're right. And I think the first step towards that path, though, is people recognizing what the insanity is and the problems. And I think that more and more these things are coming to light. I can tell you, I know there are a lot of Democrats that feel the same kind of frustration that I feel with the Democratic Party leadership.
Often quietly.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of quiet disagreement where people
Right.
are just like, I'm not voting for Trump, but
Right.
what the fuck are we doing?
Right.
There's
And
a lot
I
of
think
that.
there's that in the Republican Party as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that creates opportunity for us as a country to get out of just this two-party system mindset and this mindset of fear that drives so many of the elections, where instead of saying like, hey, I'm running for president because this is how I'm offering to lead the country. This is how I'm offering to serve the country. Here are the things that I'll do. Instead of that, we are kind of relegated to, hey, vote for me or vote for my party because the other guy's the devil.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And not and really treating voters like we're idiots, and we don't care or have the intelligence to actually look at, okay, here's where you stand on this issue. Here's where this other person stands on this issue. I'm going to make my decision not based on party, but actually based on, hey, who best reflects my values? Who is actually going to put the country first, the interests of the American people and the country first, and not just the people who say the words, but the people who actually, have the record and the policies to back that up. And so I hope that this is the direction that we're moving in as more and more people get disillusioned with leaders in both parties who care more about their own political ambitions and their own party's power than they actually do care about the American people.
It seems like part of the problem is that attack style of politics works. Like, just think about someone saying, oh, she's crazy. Like, okay, how is she crazy? But that's a narrative, and it gets out there because they attacked you. Mm-hmm. So, like, that stuff works. That's what's unfortunate, is that instead of to make it, like, if there was an incentive to say, these are our plans and this is how we can implement this, and just ignore negativity on the other side.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do, and I think that we are the best hope for the American people moving forward.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kim?
I mean, I love what she's saying. I love that she's saying to see beyond people who are putting their political ambitions first. So whether it's on an individual level where a politician's putting their individual ambitions first, or whether it's on a more insidiously, and more dangerously when it's on a party level where the entire party is sold out to certain power groups.
Right.
And then, most ironically, you have a two-party system, and both parties are sold out to the same power groups. So your
Right.
vote is pretty much worthless at that
Nil.
point.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really easy. I mean, not to say that I never get caught up in it myself. It's really easy to start feeling, well, okay, this election, I have to vote for this person because they are offering to do for me something on an issue that's very important to me. And there's these polarizing issues, you know,
Right.
like abortion or and these are very polarizing issues. And if they keep people polarized on those issues, then they can get away with a whole lot of other stuff that nobody's even thought of.
Right. Like stripping away our sovereignty or our freedoms behind the scenes while everybody's looking at this shiny object of what,
Exactly.
you know, abortion or, you know, the racial thing that identity politics and virtue signaling is what I notice is what is at the forefront of what's allowed to be plastered all over the feed. And anyone who comes to the table with, you know, hey, but what about the fact that we're about to enter a third world war? What about the fact that we're printing all these billions of dollars and ransacking the treasury and dumping it overseas and no one knows where that money's going, right? I mean, really,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, well,
and
that we have an economy that's based on debt, that's based on, it's like a worldwide Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Where you know, and you can look at the balance of trade deficit with the United States, and you can look at it and you can say, well, United States only has a 3% balance of trade deficit. What's the big deal? But if you look a little deeper, you can say, well, but what actual value is United States providing compared to how much resources? And not just United States, Europe's involved in this too.
Right.
You know, most of the NATO countries are involved, and even Russia is involved. You know, but 80% of the arms dealing is done by the NATO countries.
Correct.
And then, you know, Russia accounts for most of the other, or 70%, I should say. So about 70% of the arms dealing is done by the NATO countries, and Russia's about another 20%, which means, so if a huge percentage of in the United States, for example, if a huge percentage of our GDP is coming from arms dealing, we're not providing any real value to the world with that. We're providing death and destruction, and that that's draining the worldwide resources. That's creating a vacuum that is not a sustainable model.
Correct.
Know? If your top countries, if all your top wealthiest countries are just taking from the rest of the world and not giving back, eventually something's got to change.
Well, we're seeing what the result is of that with the as Tulsi will allude to here in the next clip I'm going to play, of a potential world war, which should be the forefront of everybody's concern right now in the country. It's like, is that where we want to go as a people, as a nation? We've been through decades of wars for going back as far as we've been alive, actually, right? Since I've been alive, since you've been alive, I mean, since my parents have been alive, we've been in and out of wars nonstop. And that seems to be the as Eisenhower called it, the industrial military complex. That seems to be like the economic model that we're choosing to go with, which we have so much other models we can go with, like what Elon Musk is doing, or like what he talks about, right? I mean, I know that's a whole other trigger thing. You say Elon Musk and people go crazy for that too. It's like, you know. So you can't say anything about anyone now, because what I do notice coming from people who identify as left, I use that in quotation because they're just labels, right? They're just labels that people give themselves and box themselves into this thing and say, well, this is where I stand on this issue, so therefore I have to believe this or I have to think this way, which we don't have to. We're human beings. We're fluid and we're capable of, you know.
Yeah, I think that comes out of fear. I think,
Yeah.
you know, let's say somebody's naturally a little bit of a centrist, and they say, well, maybe they're like me. I best to give myself as an
Right.
example. I do care about the environment. So on
Right.
that token, I'm not like most Republicans. I am concerned about environmental policy.
Same with me. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm pro-life. I'm pro Second Amendment.
Sovereignty, libertarian type of thing.
More libertarian type thinking, exactly.
Right.
And then and then that's even goes down as you could even put me a little bit in the camp of the religious Republicans. But it doesn't make sense to label me as one or the other. And
right.
And I felt like I made those choices consciously, and that's I think Tulsi's coming to the same point. Let's have people make conscious choices about what they like or don't like, and let's have them not just make conscious choices, but educated conscious choices where they've thought through these issues and they've thought about why is it that they want to be pro Second Amendment or against Second Amendment. What does that mean? And I think I was never pro Second Amendment, and I became pro Second Amendment by discussing it at length with different people and realizing, and I came to that conclusion. And I understand someone else might come to a different conclusion, but I wouldn't mind as long as they thought it through and they know both sides of the issue and what's at stake.
Correct. I also brought international perspective to this when I started talking about Second Amendment, because I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, which has the exact same laws that Canada has with guns. And there's strict gun laws and fines, and I can't just go get a gun in Trinidad and Tobago, right? I can't just go get one. Now, I can go get one on the black market, which is what everyone does in Trinidad. And every criminal that walks on the street has a weapon, right? So here it is. We have a little island in the Caribbean that has the exact same laws that are being proposed by Congress in the United States and the exact same laws that are in Canada right now. And our gun violence is, if not the same, more, right? So I'm coming from that background. And so I get on the feed and I see people talking about, if we get rid of guns, we're going to solve the problem. And I'm thinking, no, I haven't seen that. I haven't witnessed that, because I come from a country that implemented and is strict about owning a gun.
And it's a little island, so
it's a little island.
There. Yeah.
And the problem is horrendous. Every day there's a shooting in Trinidad somewhere or the other, and it's happening all the time. I'm going back there soon anyway, so wish me luck. But that and then Venezuela, the same thing. My mom's from Venezuela, so I grew up with that background. And then I'm here in America, and you hear all these people having these ideological beliefs that if they just implement this law, it'll just fix everything and go away. And I'm like, no, you got to really play this out. Let's look around the world and see what's going on, because there are examples that already exist that we can draw from and say, okay, well, these countries implemented what's being proposed now. Did it work? And who's benefiting? And what I've noticed, and what
I love what you said there. That's where the critical thinking comes in, where you're saying there are examples already of what's happening or what has happened. And,
right.
Bringing it back to what Tulsi said, well, she's probably going to say, and you'll probably play this clip in a minute, but where I've heard the clip before, where she talks about the risk of Third World War, but even when you look at Ukraine, everyone's egging Ukraine on, saying, oh, Ukraine should fight for their survival and all the rest. But there's no way Ukraine's like a really small player sandwiched between these two superpowers. And if you look back in history, what happened to all the other countries where a small country, a proxy war between, either the USSR or Russia and the United States was fought out in that country? what happened to the country where the war was fought? The country was just destroyed.
Yep.
And everyone's saying this stuff like it's a kind thing we're doing by giving them this military aid. That's not kind at all. I mean,
which is again weird to me, because there was a time when if you were labeling yourself as being a Democrat on the left, you were anti-war. You didn't want war. And now you're seeing this flip where it's like, oh, if you don't support this war, you support Putin and you're evil. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's almost like a crisscross. That should be more of a red flag or evidence to people that it doesn't matter what party you think you affiliate yourself with. It's about what special interest groups are really running the show behind the scenes and pushing certain policies in Congress and pitching it to the American people as if it's for your benefit, when in reality it's destructive. Yeah.
I think there's a reason why the Republicans are no longer the warmonger party. And this is a big thing. And the reason why is that they were the ones who went to war. They were the ones who went to Afghanistan. They were the ones who went to Iraq. And they saw firsthand what was happening there. And they realized this is not really about defending freedom or installing democracy. This is about corporate interests and money and oil. And so they no longer want to partake, so they had to switch it to the Democrats now.
Interesting, because Tulsi is a military member, so she's been to the war. So it makes sense what you're saying. That's actually further evidence why she had to walk away and say, I don't think they represent what I thought they did. And I think a lot of people are noticing that right now. What's interesting to me, too, is the way people are locking onto the party ideal or the branding as if somehow it's virtuous or better than the other person, which she points out, which she says that it's just, the elections are just pretty much just fear-based now. It's like, vote for us, otherwise if that guy comes in, he's going to take away all your stuff. And it's like, no, that's irrational. It's not based in any kind of logical thinking here. It's just based on fear rather than who has the policy that's going to help us or move this country in a direction that's, should I say the word positive? Because that's too simplistic, but maybe that'll work for now.
That was positive. Yeah, move the country in a direction that's positive. And I think, ironically,
and the world.
Well, ironically, this is the thing that is really interesting to me is, people have been critical of sometimes people in the country being patriotic as if it was a bad thing.
Right.
But I think in some cases patriotism can go too far.
Sure.
I think ironically right now, what's good for United States is also good for the world. So it's not good for the United States to give their money away to Ukraine.
Right.
And it's not good for Ukraine. It's definitely not good for Russia.
Correct.
So it's better if we had somebody in, and it doesn't matter from which party, but if we had somebody in who said, let's focus on using that money for the people in the United States because they need that money. And I will say this, that Bernie was the last Democrat that really, I don't agree with all of his policies, but he said certain things, which is, his focus was not on war with Russia. His focus was on rebuilding infrastructure, creating jobs in the United States, and like you said, a positive direction.
Right. I mean, we don't have all the answers, folks. We're just having a conversation about it, and we're trying to, in the best way possible, get us away from the fear-based thinking where I think the media has all of us at right now, and more along the lines of a solution-based type of thinking where we are able to talk to each other and not demonize each other and act like if you like Trump, then you're evil, or if you like Biden, you're evil. It's none of those things. It's just us being able to say, like, listen, we may have our differences in who we want to vote for, fine. But let's come to the table and have a discussion about policy. Not because at the end of the day, is it going to matter that you about your abortion issue or your gun rights issue and all these things that you're talking about if we're on the brink of a third world war? Is it going to matter anything that we're talking internally as a country if we can't get our act together and keep our shit together? You know what I mean? Just like we're so that's why I kind of get a little bit perturbed when I see people talking about Roe v. Wade and all this stuff, and I'm like, listen, that stuff, we could talk about that the rest of the 8 years we have or 4 years that we have ahead of us. How about we deal with the main issue right now at hand, which is let's keep the peace. Let's figure out a way for everybody to get back to dealing with each other in a civilized way, doing commerce, whatever we need to do, make deals, blah, 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 blah. I'm not a specialist here. That's the job of the people who know what to do. And internally, we can continue to have that discussion of, you know what, yes, a woman should have the right to whatever the case is. I'm not hardcore. Yes, personally, I don't like abortion, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to step on someone else's right to fight for whatever they think adjustments need to be made, right? That's because that's what our democracy is that we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to have these debates and discussions and fine tune it and tweak it as we go. And to be honest, America is pretty good compared to most parts of the world, which I think there's a little bit of gratitude missing from us who complain a little too much. Because if you've gotten a passport and you've traveled around the world, which, Kim, I know you have and I have, you'll see right away, like, there's a lot to be grateful for in this country. You know, there's a lot of things we take for granted, actually. And you come back and you go, oh, wow. I didn't have to deal with, you know, when I was in India, the amount of stuff that I went through in India and I came back here, I was like, wow, I really took a lot for granted in the United States. Not
just the
air
quality.
Yeah,
just the air quality.
Air quality. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. Just air quality, little things that we may take for granted day to day. You know, I used to walk down and grab water from, you know, one of those street pipe things to get water because the well would run dry sometimes at the apartment where we stayed, and all those little things. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was an experience. I didn't mind. I grew up that way in Trinidad also, so I was already accustomed to it. But, and sometimes we'd have trucks bring water and fill it in the tank. Like, that's how life is in most parts of the world, by the way. You know, like, it's only in the USA you have this luxury of, like, flicking a switch and turning your tap on constantly and getting something when you pay your bill. But just in general, and in terms of human rights, yeah, we have our issues internally, but we still champion most of that compared to the rest of the world till this day. And so I don't think that it's right for us to be just throwing it all out, throwing the baby out with the bathwater simply because you may have some minor disagreements internally. And then on top of that, not look at what we're doing foreign policy wise, not looking at what we're doing economically, because once we fix the economics, then we fix a lot of these so-called internal problems that are being used to divide us.
So Mahesh, right now, do you think it's just happenstance that we've ended up in this situation where,
well,
where you know, we're right on the edge of third world war with Russia, and we're antagonizing China too? Or, I mean,
well, I have some theories, but I don't want to.
I'm not seeing anything from the people in the administration that's in right now. I'm not seeing anything from them to throw any caution to the wind. To everything they're doing is moving us towards conflict with both Russia and Ukraine, with the two biggest superpowers, other superpowers in the world right now.
Right.
And I'm honestly, I mean, I was pretty shocked when Nancy Pelosi, when she went to Taiwan and sort of, it was like a slap in the face to China. I was kind of like, wow, why is she doing that right now when we're already having this proxy war with Russia?
Right. Like,
what is going? It's almost like they want. Maybe it almost looks like they want a war. Like I'm confused by that. Like,
Well, there's so many moving parts to this, and there's so many theories that sprung out of that. And also, her rhetoric when she came back from Taiwan was there was a clip where she was getting interviewed, and she said, in order for us to compete with Russia and China, we need to realize that we have to become an autocratic society. And China, by the way, has no issues with human rights violations. And she started going on this weird spiel, which almost felt like it almost felt like she's not really truly starting anything with China. In fact, she may have had a meeting with Chinese officials when she went there. That's another discussion to be had. But there is
right?
There is a division within the United States politically, which Tulsi talks about, where it seems that the party that's claiming to be the party of freedom is actually discussing how they can push us more in an autocratic direction of becoming an autocracy and getting rid of the Constitution and all these things like that. And because it's a hassle and it gets in the way. And, when we have to compete against other countries that are this way, why are we being so different? So there's already that conversation taking place in Washington, and very openly. Maxine Waters on record saying it. All of these politicians are on record going on national television and saying it. And they're already slowly grooming the population to the idea that, we can't be having all these people getting on social media expressing free ideas. No. That's dangerous. Did you see what happened in Rohingya with the Rohingyas? Like that's if you look at the way the conversations are just playing out.
Mahesh, it's already happened.
Right.
We've got. Unfortunately, we have monopolies with Google controlling search and the main video sharing platform, YouTube.
Right.
And they've dominated email too. And
Correct.
Then Facebook is dominating social media with Facebook and Instagram. So, Twitter's assuming Elon Musk is truly,
right.
He's going to do what he says he's going to do and keep it a neutral platform and keep it a platform for free speech. And there won't be any shadow banning going on Twitter.
Already is. I'm being shadow banned at every turn on every platform, except for the other ones like Rumble and Truth Social. I just roam free on those.
Right. Yeah.
But I can see the difference. Yeah.
If there's any one thing we as a people can do, it's to shift away from these platforms that are controlled, because we're ready, like you said, where people are already shadow banned. A movie like that movie that came out, the movie Ukraine on Fire, which was made in 2017 before any of this stuff happened, and
that's what that green screen clip was. That's what that green screen clip on Instagram was. I shared a green screen clip where a director is saying action, and Zelensky's standing in front of a green screen and they're recording him. And I put in there, like, can anyone tell me what this is? Because I didn't know what that was. I thought that was like now. Like, I thought that was a clip from like him being filmed in front of a green screen today. So you're saying that was the movie that was made back in 2017?
Well, I don't know if Zelensky was around when that movie was made in 2017. I think, and the movie covers events that happened prior to 2017. It shows the Ukraine on Fire movie is great because it shows the whole history of what happened with the coups that were organized by George Soros and CIA coups, and who all the different players were, and who. And it's a pretty it's made by it's Oliver Stone documentary. It's
Oliver Stone. He was on Patrick Bet David. I think he talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and the thing is though, I don't think that movie was banned. But when this war started happening, they were like, well, we can't have people seeing what's really going on, and they banned it on YouTube because they said it was violent. And please, seriously. So we already have, and. The level of banning of stuff that, I guess we don't have it at a government level. You're right. We don't have it at a government level where the government is overriding one of our, constitutional rights yet.
Well, no. Alex Berenson. I think it's Alex Berenson.
I don't know. Yeah,
he's a journalist. I did an episode on it where he has actual physical evidence, emails that was coming from the White House to Twitter saying, well, what are you going to do about this guy, which is Alex Berenson, the journalist, who was reporting actual facts about what was being said about the I have to be careful what I say because of, the censorship. So of the thing that goes in your arm, he was giving actual scientific data that was coming from the CDC, coming from all these other scientists who were talking about it. And he was just posting the articles from these doctors and scientists, which were kind of flying in the face of what the mainstream CNN and MSNBC narrative was. And so the White House, actual officials from the White House was sending emails, and he's posting them on his Substack right now. Alex Berenson is his name. And,
but there's no law. Yeah, so
right. So they're indirectly taking.
They're doing it indirectly.
Yeah.
But they want to do it. What you were saying earlier was they want to be like China and do it directly.
Right, which is why they're promoting that now, and they're trying to get people. Unfortunately, people we know who are seeing this as like, well, we have to do this if we're going to save America. I'm like, no,
I've seen that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the same breath, turning around and saying, if we let that orange man back in, he's going to take away our rights and our freedoms. And I'm like, but.
And we have to fight Russia because Russia doesn't have freedom of speech. But let's
take away our freedoms of speech.
Anyone we don't like on Twitter.
You see, it's what's the word for that? A cognitive dissonance. It's huge, big time. I see it everywhere, and that's why I laugh a lot of times on the post, because I'm laughing really at like how comedic we've become. We've become kind of in my mind, I'm a little bit dark with my humor, so I laugh at things that most people don't laugh at. So you will notice that I'll put a laughing face, or I'll be screaming laughing, because I'm laughing at how the brain is in dissonance with itself, and the person is not conscious of that. They're just spewing out this anger or this hate of like, how could you say this? Don't you know this, and this? And I'm like, are they looking at all the different examples and correlating it and making a connection? But unfortunately, the average person is not doing that, which is unfortunate, which is causing the division. But if people are willing to talk beyond that point and say, hey, well, what are you looking at that I might not be seeing? I might have a blind spot here, which I do when I talk to people in person. You can't do it on Facebook because it's difficult. You type in the comment section and it could take you all day, so I'd leave a comment, but then I'll be driving to another job site and I'll be like, I'll respond to this later. And then it just gets spread out over a period of weeks. You're trying to have this conversation that could probably take place in a forum like this, where, in the comment section, it's a little bit more difficult because it's just fragmented thoughts being spread out.
And there's no tone, there's no intonation to really hear how you're saying it. Yeah.
Right. And often my laughter comes off as like I'm being evil or whatever, but it's not that. I'm just my normal reaction to things that like that is to laugh, because I guess it's my protective defense, I guess, in some way.
Well, it like you said, it's an extreme irony, which it's the only way to deal with it, I guess, is to laugh it off, because I mean, we know how serious the situation is. I think if there's one thing I would love people to see, it's for them to understand what is at stake. Those constitutional, those people always say, oh, we need to maybe move past what the founding forefathers came up with. But it's like, well, they came up with those over a period of time.
Right. And they thought about a lot of thought.
They thought about it. That was back. See, that was back when they were actually doing things for the betterment, for the positive direction of the country.
Correct.
For improving the country. The intention was something good for the people. And maybe they weren't perfect, but I don't trust that any of the intention coming from the government now is really for the positive direction of the country. I mean, well, there have been a few things that were done that were good by by different leaders, and that's.
I'm gonna wrap up this segment here real quick. So, in conclusion, Kim, what are your thoughts on this little clip we just played? We will go to the second part. So, if you want to see the second part of this conversation, there'll be a part 2. But let's go ahead.
I'm all with Tulsi, and I think she's one of the few. How rare is it for a politician to let go of their political ambition like she is doing and say, hey, enough is enough. And to be, if there's one politician who's a centrist, it's her. To be someone and say, hey, I just see something's wrong here. And she's trying to wake people up. That's what I see her doing. She's trying to wake people up.
Yeah. We're going through some, a really awesome, I want to say the word awesome time right now, even though it's difficult. And I think it's a crucial point in our history. And it's a wonderful time to be alive. God knows, who knows for how long, but either way, I like to put a positive spin on it and think that, you know what, we're living through this for a reason. We're all going through growing pains, and we're all learning and growing and developing, and we will come out the other side being a better country for it, I think. As long as we're all willing to have that conversation and discuss, debate, whatever the case is. But through all of that, remember that at the back of our minds, we remember that we're all part of the same country and that we all essentially want the same thing. Whether it be the details of how we achieve that could be discussed and debated. But in the general sense of things, we're all American and we all want what's best for America, I think. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the time we're living in now. Yes, it is difficult, it is tough, but we'll get there. We just have to keep persevering every day.
Yeah.
And have a bit of excitement about it too, And
things are, that video from Tulsi is a big deal, and that's a sign. Things are changing. Things are changing in the positive direction.
I agree. All right, with that, folks, we're going to go ahead and do part 2. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. It's already 39 minutes, but I will probably cut it down and make it a little bit more bite-sized for the YouTube channel. And thank you all for watching. My name is Mahesh Chookolingo and Kim Sinton. See you on the next episode.